So, I saw The Predator. It was, it was bad. It was quite bad. The Predator is a follow-up to at least the first two movies and possibly the others. It's pretty nondescript on which are canon outside of Predator and Predators. This is, oddly, one of the biggest problems with the movie, the vagueness. The Predator is directed and co-written by Shane Black, who was in the original Predator film, as well as directing some more recent, fairly well-received films, Iron Man 3 and The Nice Guys. I can't speak on the latter, but as for Iron Man 3, I felt it was the weaker of the three films. But, still not bad. So given all that, I'm left here wondering where things went wrong and turned into such a colossal clusterfuck of wasted talent, money, and ideas. I've reviewed and seen a lot of movies so far this year. I've seen even more that weren't even deserving of videos because they had less substance than a dish of water left in the middle of the Sahara Desert. I'm looking at you, Deathwish. Anyway, my point is, I've seen bad movies, and often they're bad because no one cared or the studio interfered too much or someone cared far too much about mundane and minute details. Neither are the case for this film. The Predator is sloppy, malaligned, and chock full of comic relief that is supposed to alleviate the thrilling and suspenseful moments, but instead bogs down the movement of the film, meaning the jokes don't end up relieving you, nor do the action scenes scare you. And I'll admit, some of the jokes were funny, but the vast majority weren't. Humor, of course, is subjective, so maybe you find it funnier, but that still doesn't change the fact that, because there are so many jokes, it just acts as a sharp change from pseudo-scary to pseudo-funny, which wasn't what Shane Black intended. It basically makes both of them mute. Their contribution to the film, the scare, the relief of being, oh, it's a funny joke, it's all good now, they're all safe, all of that is lost because of the way this was done. And this wasn't what Shane Black intended. He wanted to make a good movie, but things just didn't go his way. Until test screenings, to the best I can tell, The Predator was Shane Black's vision. Now, I have no idea where the ball dropped for certain, but I've got a pretty good idea. The movie had its entire third act reshot. That's bad. Objectively bad, and it's even worse now that the new third act was nailed onto the original first and second acts. It means that whatever was done was so bad that they couldn't just do minor changes, they had to redo it all, and what came of it was horrible. The movie, as I mentioned already, is vague, but the vagueness is made worse by the continuity errors, the slip-ups, the tiny mistakes you'd think big names like Predator or Shane Black wouldn't make. Plot holes. Now, I'm not talking about minor plot holes, I'm talking about major story-relevant actions that characters did that they literally should not have been able to do. The writing itself is so off-kilter for a movie like this that it's impossible to take it serious, in between jokes that literally revolve around the entire cast saying, "Eat your pussy," for 2 minutes, and then massive carnage from the Predator. So with all that, you'd think, well gee, it's reasonable that Mr. Shane Black would make some screw-ups, and yeah, sure, plenty of movies do have tiny little things, but Jesus fucking Christ, I wasn't expecting it to be on the level it was. Just to be clear, from here on out, I'll be talking about spoilers in excruciating detail. If you want to avoid that, and for whatever reason know whether you should see this movie or not, you shouldn't. Skip to the time on screen, okay? Good. I don't want to make this video as long as the movie itself, so I'll be somewhat brief. Of course, for me, that just means I won't make this video a feature-length film. Plot holes are abundant. Plenty of movies have them, and some are minor. In one scene of The Predator, for instance, the main character, McKenna, played by Boyd Holbrook, makes a big show of grabbing a sniper rifle. The next scene, we're following him, and he has a semi-automatic gun. This is minor. This is fairly irrelevant. This is just poor filmmaking. The rest of the plot holes in this movie aren't. Here are the biggest ones. During the first and second act of the movie, the plot revolves around the Predator trying to regain his gear. The gear, having been sent to McKenna's son, is being used as a Halloween costume because why not? We follow McKenna's son, Rory, on Halloween, and after he gets attacked by some bullies from his school, the Predator helmet turns on and launches a missile, striking a house and blowing it up, killing a man inside of it. Rory, naturally being scared shitless, leaves behind the helmet. Next, we see the helmet is not being worn by the Predator, who's now wearing an older Predator mask. Instead, we see the mask being used by Casey, played by Olivia Munn, who uses it to attack the Super Predator. This occurs in the third act, the reshot act. I don't mean to say that it's totally horrible. It's fucking horrible, and this is only the beginning. In a rather odd twist, the next plot hole does not come from the third act, but the second act. For those of you that didn't know, the whole thing Predators do is they rip out the spines of the creatures they kill. It's long been established in their mythos that they like to keep the spines attached to the head and use it as trophies. The Predator backpedals on this and says that the spines are instead used for their spinal fluid, which the Predators use from the most powerful of each species to enhance themselves genetically. Pretty cool, right? Now, here's where it starts to make the movie look like it has more holes in it than a block of Swiss cheese. Sterling K. Brown's character, the doctor or something, I don't even remember his name, I don't even know if they said it, probably the worst role role he's been in. He knows all this stuff and later confirms it. But, and this is the issue, we as an audience and the protagonist find this out by the super predator ripping out the skull and spine of the lesser predator. This causes Casey to suddenly, after looking through a vial, to determine that they're taking spinal fluid to enhance themselves. And to be clear, I really dislike talking about this stuff since it can seem really nitpicky, but it isn't. It's poorly written. None of this makes a lick of sense. Why would the superior predator take the inferior one's spine, make her think that they're taking superior spines to enhance themselves? Why would she jump to this? Obviously, it's a movie, and that's why, but that's the only reason. Any other movie, if something like this happened, they'd just be like, holy fuck, that's really fucking brutal. But no, in this one, for whatever reason, she jumps to, they're taking the spines to make themselves super. And therein lies what really bothers me, is they didn't really bother with this scene. They put a lot of work into this movie. You can tell the cast really tried. Shane Black tried. I mean, the scenes look good. They're part of a horrible movie. They're part of a really bad movie. They put way too little time into stuff like this and way too much time into the eat her pussy scene. Throughout the movie, we see that McKenna's son, who has Asperger's or some level of autism, again, Shane Black throws details out the window and the important parts. His son is able to understand all of the Predator tech because, as the movie puts it, autism is the next part of the evolutionary chain. Because of this, Rory is able to unlock all the doors when they eventually get onto the Predator ship and to use its computer. Later on, again, during the glorious shitstorm that is the third act, McKenna sneaks on board the Predator ship as it takes off, and he opens the door with ease. This is another relatively minor one, like the initial one I said. It's bothersome, and it basically disregards the whole point of having Rory in the movie. His point there, other than the Predator wanting to take his spine because it wants his autism brain DNA to enhance itself, that's basically the main part of the third act. That's what the main super predator wants. It completely makes Rory irrelevant because his dad can just now type a couple of numbers and just randomly get in. It just completely makes Rory's character irrelevant. We're never given details if Rory taught his dad. If he did, that would have been perfect and it would have explained this. Again, if a little bit more effort was put on this scene, everything would have made just a tiny bit more sense instead of leaving you with a resounding how. And in my case, a whispered, "What the fuck?" while watching it. It could be that they did film the scene where Rory teaches McKenna how to open the doors. But, you know, I really doubt that because of this next one. The one I'd argue is the biggest plot hole I've seen this fucking year, and that includes everything in Red Sparrow. The third act calls back to the first and second in its final fight scene. We see McKenna squaring off against the super predator, when all of a sudden Casey, in the same cloak used by the predators, jumps onto the back of the super predator and shoots his head with a gun repeatedly, allowing McKenna to finish it off with some badass action scenes. So cool. Except it would have been. This would have been a pretty fun little ending if Shane Black had kept in mind the first two acts. In the first act, McKenna is in possession of the cloaking device. He later mails it towards the end of the first act to his home before being court-martialed. After that, Rory finds it, and then going into the second act, keeps it with him. Later on, McKenna tells Rory how to use it, but sadly, Rory drops it for whatever reason. But then, at the end, Casey has it. She didn't know it was special. Matter of fact, she seems to show a pretty lack of interest in Predator tech despite the abundance of it after the first act. She didn't know how to use it either, and it could be argued that she found it somewhere along the way, but I'm sorry, not even my brain can perform that far of a stretch. It could have happened, but a movie tells a narrative. It's not supposed to just do things randomly and then make prominent scenes telling one person something only for another character to do the things without knowing them. And I'm sure you're thinking, well, maybe she heard it as well. No, they were like 100 feet away. They clearly showed the scene where it was, and Rory and McKenna were pretty separated from the rest of the fucking group. Taking all of this in, there's only one reasonable reason why Casey made such leaps in her knowledge, knowing how to use Predator tech, and for whatever reason, magnetically collects it off screen to be used in important scenes. Casey was the Predator all along. This movie is a perfect example of how to do things wrong. It's a perfect example that just because you can make a good movie before and be in the original of a franchise doesn't mean you can waltz back in and make a good movie. I strongly dislike The Predator. My face was in a perpetual state of shock by what this twat thought was a good movie while I was watching it. I guess it's a great bad movie though. Some of the jokes aren't bad. It's got the guy from Key and Peele in it, and I like him as an actor. It's got a pretty good cast. I didn't really have any issues with the performances outside of a clashing theme themes, so one would go from being very serious to being a fucking jokester and saying, "Eat my pussy." So, all in all, it's not insufferable to watch. The story structure is just lopsided by the separately shot third act and makes for a weird experience. And, I'll be honest, the comedic air of the movie, despite ruining nearly every goddamn serious moment, means it's, not horrible to sit through. Just most of it is. More than anything, I'm left with a deep feeling of wondering what went wrong with The Predator. The bones are there for a good story, the follow-through not so much. It's sad. I give it a score of 1 for being entertaining, a 1 for a pretty okay cast, and a 1 for neat practical effects, although it quickly devolves into CGI. The CGI wasn't really of note. It was fine. Overall, I give The Predator a 3. If you're looking for a fun film to see this weekend and laugh at, I'd say The Predator would be a good pick. There are better ones though, but you'll at least find it comical, maybe just for the wrong reasons. Thank you guys for watching. I'd love to hear your thoughts on The Predator and videos like this that are less my usual format and more going through the movie itself, so less structure. And if you'd like to support and represent the channel, go check out my merch store. The link is in the description below. I've just launched a new line of fall/winter 2018 designs, full of tons of shirt styles and 3 designs. I'm really proud of it, and I hope you guys like it. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more content like this in the future, and make sure to hit the bell icon to turn on notifications. And as always, I'll see you in the next video. A huge thank you to Patreon supporters Anonymous and Matt Porter. I really appreciate it. I'm an idiot